I've spent the better part of 2 decades building a physical product company in the United States. That means I wake up every morning knowing that somewhere on the other side of the Pacific, there's a factory floor running 24/7 that could theoretically eat my lunch. It's not a paranoid fantasy. It's just the reality of competing in the global manufacturing economy. But here's what I've learned after years of placing real bets, hiring real people, and shipping real product. The story everyone tells about China is both true and incomplete. And the parts they leave out are where the actual opportunity lives. Let me back up. In the mid-2000s, I was running a smaller operation, and I needed a specific metal component for a product line we were developing. Nothing exotic, just a stamped bracket with some holes in it. I called around to domestic suppliers, and I kept getting the same answer. We don't do that anymore. Try overseas. So I did. Within 48 hours, I had quotes from 3 factories in Guangdong. Within a week, I had samples. The price was about 60% of what any American shop had quoted, even before factoring in tooling costs. At the time, I thought this was just a price story. I was wrong. What I didn't understand then was that I was witnessing something far more structural. See, that Chinese factory didn't just have cheap labor. They had a stamping press that had been running 16 hours a day for years, so the operator could feel a misalignment by the vibration in the floor. They had a tool and die guy who lived in the building next door and could fix any issue in under an hour. They had 3 raw materials suppliers within a 10-minute walk who all competed with each other on delivery speed. I wasn't buying from a factory. I was buying from an ecosystem. This is the part of the China story that most Western executives still misunderstand. We keep talking about labor costs like it's 1995. Meanwhile, the real game has shifted completely. The average manufacturing wage in China's coastal cities has tripled in the last 15 years. The minimum wage in Shenzhen is now higher than in parts of Eastern Europe. And yet, China still dominates in category after category. Why? Because wages are table stakes now. The real differentiator is industrial metabolism, how fast an entire system can learn, adapt, and improve. Let me give you a different example. In 2019, I visited a factory outside Ningbo that makes electric motor components. They weren't doing anything revolutionary, but what struck me was the layout. The engineering office was literally on the mezzanine above the production floor. When a line supervisor spotted a quality issue, they'd walk upstairs, grab an engineer, and walk back down together. The fix was often implemented within the same shift. In my American factory, engineering is in a separate building. We have meetings to schedule meetings. The contrast isn't about intelligence or work ethic. It's about physical proximity and organizational design. This isn't an accident. China spent decades deliberately building dense industrial clusters. There's a concept in economic geography called knowledge spillovers. It's the idea that innovation happens when people who share similar skills are in the same place, bumping into each other, accidentally trading information. That's why you can find every component for an electric scooter within a few square miles of the Pearl River Delta. It's not central planning, it's organic density that the state intentionally cultivated. Now, does that mean America is doomed? I don't think so. But I think most people are asking the wrong question. They're asking, can we compete on price? And the answer is no, not at scale, and not in categories where volume matters most. The better question is, where does physical proximity and responsiveness actually give us a structural edge. Let me tell you a story about why I still manufacture in the US, despite the cost differential. A few years ago, we had a customer, a large hospital system, who needed an urgent replacement for a custom filtration unit. Their existing supplier, based overseas, quoted them an 8-week lead time. They called us on a Tuesday. We had a design matched by Wednesday. We ran a small batch on Thursday. We installed it the following Monday. We charged a premium. They were thrilled. That's not just service, that's structural asymmetry. An overseas factory cannot do that. Period. If I were advising a younger version of myself on where to place bets today, I'd tell them to stop looking at consumer products entirely. The margins are too thin, the cycle times too short, and the supply chains too globalized. Instead, I'd point them toward what I call infrastructure gravity businesses. Things that are heavy, expensive to ship, operationally annoying, and require a high degree of customization. Industrial pumps, water treatment components, specialty valves, replacement parts for aging infrastructure. These are not sexy businesses. They don't attract venture capital, but they're incredibly hard to offshore because the value isn't just in the product, it's in the service, the support, and the responsiveness that comes with being physically close to the customer. There's a historical parallel here that I don't hear discussed enough. In the 1970s, Japan was the manufacturing boogeyman. American executives were terrified of Japanese quality and efficiency. And to be fair, Japan did eat entire industries. But what also happened was that American companies in certain sectors figured out that they could compete on things Japanese manufacturers couldn't easily replicate. System integration, customization, aftermarket support. The same thing is happening now. China will dominate the high-volume, standardized commodity categories. But the multi-billion-dollar opportunity for American entrepreneurs is in the unglamorous, fragmented, high-service industrial niches that nobody is paying attention to. Let me share one more insight that I've developed after watching this play out for years. The most important metric in manufacturing is not cost per unit. It's decision velocity. How quickly can you identify a problem, mobilize resources, and implement a fix? In China, that velocity is astonishingly high because the ecosystem is so tight. In America, we've let that atrophy. But here's the good news. Decision velocity is not a function of geography alone. It's a function of organizational design. If you deliberately structure your company to minimize approvals, physically co-locate your engineers and operators, and invest in relationships with local suppliers, you can reclaim a lot of that speed. I'm not naive. I don't think America is going to win manufacturing in any broad sense. The era of the US producing the majority of the world's physical goods is over, probably forever. But that's a useless framing anyway. The goal isn't to beat China at their own game. The goal is to build durable, defensible businesses that serve markets Chinese factories cannot serve well. And those markets are larger than most people realize. One thing I've noticed is that the youngest generation of American engineers actually wants to be in factories. There's a romance to making physical things that you don't get from writing code. We need to design our facilities and our companies to appeal to that energy, to give them problems worth solving. That's the real competitive advantage. Not fighting the last war against labor arbitrage, but building environments where talented people can solve hard problems faster than anyone else on Earth. If you're sitting on the sidelines wondering if there's still an opportunity in American manufacturing, here's my honest answer. There is, but you need to pick your territory carefully. Don't try to build the next consumer electronics sensation. Look instead at what's heavy, what's custom, what's hard to ship, and what's tied to critical infrastructure. Those are the businesses that will still exist in 30 years. Those are the businesses that can't be replicated by a container ship from Shanghai. I'm placing my bets there. The numbers work. The math is ugly sometimes, but ugly math beats no math every single time. If this perspective changed the way you think about manufacturing, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear where you think America's next industrial opportunity really lies. And if you enjoy thoughtful stories about business, economics, and how the world actually works, consider subscribing. There's a lot more to explore.